the movie very quickly took off. I was very surprised to see that it showed up in Europe and that it was being translated into multiple languages. People were putting subtitles, I think, in Dutch, and I did see it in French. I did see it in German. So it was in a number of languages, and people took an interest in it there. I got a call one morning from Kyle Hentz. I don't know if you know who Kyle Hentz is. He's one of the producers of a very good film. And if any of you have notebooks with you, you should write down 9/11 Press for the Truth. It's one of the best and most legitimate films on the subject, and there are a lot of films out there at this point, but this is the one to watch because the victims' families participated and they tell you their story in Congress trying to deal with the obstruction that was going on. So it's a very legitimate film. He called me to let me know that, John, did you hear? A congressman from Pennsylvania, your hometown, Kurt Weldon, had put out a couple of press releases mentioning my film and putting the link in there and asking his constituents and the press, have you seen this? This caught me by surprise. I didn't expect my little film in New York City to have wings in such a way. Someone else contacted me that I had made I think it was the Google Top 20 list for downloadable films, and this is a list that major motion picture companies pay PR firms millions of dollars to try to get onto this list, get their trailers downloaded. And this was a grassroots film made by some guy, some amateur, suddenly was on the top 20 list. My website got, thank you. My website at the time, I had a website, don't look for it now, it's not there anymore. It was called crisisinamerica.org. It got shut down because I had exceeded the maximum allowable data transfers. I mean, basically, I was crashing their servers. But it was on Google as well. I don't know if there was YouTube in those days, so you couldn't put a movie of that length on there. But I think at its height, it was close to 500,000 downloads. And then, for various reasons, it got shut down, which I'm not going to go into. At a certain point, I will admit, it kind of unnerved me, because there was also a lot of blowback for doing this film. A lot of people who accused me of being unpatriotic, and I really wonder what their definition of citizenry is. If you can witness 3,000 of your citizens being killed, and you don't want to ask questions, don't ask any questions. So, what concerns me at this point is in the 9/11 truth movement at this point, it seems like the media and the culture at large has gotten very comfortable with marginalizing us by referring to us as conspiracy theorists. It's the key phrase. I mean, you just hear it over and over and over. I will bet you dollars to donuts. Any media at this event that covers this event goes on TV, you're going to hear those words. They don't like words like calls for accountability. They don't like hearing about victims' families. My understanding is that there was members of the media here yesterday, and they refused to interview Bob McElvey. And he lost his son on 9/11. And for the media to refuse to, get the opinions of a victim's family member is hardly objective, and it's hardly fair. And I wonder, have they no dignity? I will bet you now that we'll be referred to as conspiracy theorists. Okay, I'm going to read a little bit from the prepared text that I have, and I'm going to look old doing it. Okay, you've heard the term conspiracy theories a lot in the media today. It seems like those two words have been getting a lot of airtime. It seems like almost any discussion on 9/11 always seems to come back to those two words, conspiracy theories. It doesn't matter the context. It doesn't matter that 9/11 Truth started nearly 9 years ago as a result of a call for accountability from the victims' family members and first responders. It appears that it's much easier to accuse the 9/11 Truth movement of being conspiracy theorists than to clarify the historical record. Let me repeat those words. Clarifying the historical record. Okay, that's what we're looking for here. No theories. Why is that concept so hard to understand? Because despite all the songs and dance and disruption and disinformation and misinformation and smear campaigns and attacks and hit pieces in the media, 9/11 Truth still stands for accountability. Accountability for the victims' family members, accountability for the first responders, and accountability for the citizens of this country. Yeah. They have a right to know what happened. 9/11 was a fairly significant event. Approximately 3,000 people died in the worst terrorist attack in the history of the United States. Do our critics expect Americans to not have questions? Do our critics expect us to not demand accountability? I'm directing these comments directly to our critics. I am directing these questions directly to the media who may or may not be in attendance tonight, but I understand this is being videotaped. And, I'm not one to preach to the choir. I know I have an audience here that is sensitive to our cause. But I would direct these comments to the media themselves and ask them to really soul search and really be honest with themselves regarding some of the issues that we're going to be talking about today. I have to ask the opposing question, what would it be like to live in a country where 3,000 citizens are murdered in cold blood right before our eyes and no one dares ask any questions? That's a scary thought, isn't it? 3,000 murders and none of our journalists even ask the most fundamental questions? That's frightening. Not every question can be labeled as the product of conspiracy theories. There are some legitimate fundamental questions, aren't there? To any journalists who may be in the room, there are legitimate questions, aren't there? You will allow for that much. 3,000 people murdered in the worst terrorist attack in the history of the United States. There must be at least a few questions that stimulate your journalistic juices. How about this one? Where were our air defenses? 40 minutes after the towers were hit in New York City, a commercially hijacked jet flew into Washington, D.C., arguably the most secure airspace in the world, and hit the Pentagon, the heart of our military-industrial complex. Not a single jet was scrambled to intercept that plane. 40 minutes after we knew we were under attack. 40 minutes after the president was told the nation is under attack. No jets in Washington, D.C., no jets from Andrews Air Force Base, just a few miles away from the Pentagon. We spent trillions of dollars in this country, and a plane was able to ramble into Washington, D.C., 40 minutes after the president was informed that we were under attack, and hit the heart of our military-industrial complex, unchallenged. Scrambling jets is a fairly routine thing. Yet on that day, not a single jet was scrambled to defend our nation's capital. Before 9/11, fighter jets were scrambled on a fairly routine basis, a standard protocol as part of drills, almost daily drills. So would it be legitimate for the media to ask what went wrong on 9/11? Our nation spends trillions on national defense. Would it be legitimate to ask how such a thing could happen? No conspiracy theories, no accusations. Another question for the journalists in attendance. Would it be reasonable to expect the 9/11 Commission would investigate that one question? Where were our air defenses? What went wrong? Is that fair enough? Certainly the 9/11 Commission would ask these questions, right? Well, on August 2nd, 2006, the Washington Post wrote, some staff members and commissioners of the September 11th panel concluded that the Pentagon's initial story of how it reacted to the 2001 terrorist attacks may have been part of a deliberate effort to mislead the commission and the public rather than a reflection of the fog of events on that day, according to sources involved in the debate. Thomas Kean, former New Jersey Republican governor who led the commission, is quoted as saying in this story, "We to this day do not know why NORAD told us what they told us. It was so far from the truth." No conspiracy theories here. Fundamental questions. So that's why 9/11 Truth exists to this day. That is why we're here today. Would the journalists among us concede that we have a right to know the truth? Do we, as citizens of America, do we have a right to, maybe you don't think we have a right to know. Maybe you think during a time of war we should just shut up and not ask any questions. Forget whatever animus you might personally feel towards 9/11 Truth. As a movement, in principle, do you believe that Americans have a right to know the truth? Because we have it here in writing. Thomas Kean, who led the 9/11 Commission, concluded that it was so far from the truth. The article goes on to say, "I was shocked at how different the truth was from the way it was described," said John Farmer. He's a New Jersey Attorney General who led the staff inquiry into the events of September 11th. He led the inquiry. The tapes told a radically different story from what had been told to us in the public for 2 years. This is not spin. This is just not true.